Hi, friends. How we doing? All right. Oh, this is a nice carpet. I feel like I should be like, let's just talk about it. How's everyone doing? I'm out here talking to you today about Adopt, Don't Shop. I had the pleasure of coming to Hero Roundtable last year, and I was very moved and excited. Last year I spoke about anti-bullying, another big cause of mine, and this year I said, hey, can I come back? And Matt was like, no, you came already. And I was like, but I'll talk about something different. And he said, okay, fine. So one of the big things in my life is I am the proud owner right now of 5 dogs. And they are affectionately known as the Gatto Pups. Those are them right there. Those are my pups. Yeah, that's me in the middle there. On my right is Tartufo. On my lap is Biscotti. Back left, the guy mean mugging is Zeppeli. Cannolis by my side, and then between my legs playing peekaboo is Spumoni, who you may have seen bobbing around. I'm Italian and like desserts. So it all started actually with our first dog, Cannoli, we actually purchased. And we went and got a designer dog. My wife, Bessie, was like, let's get a dog. I said, okay. So we went and bought one like everybody does. And we got this beautiful dog that we paid $1,600 for, who is a cute little cannoli and gorgeous. And by the end of the first month, I was in about $4,000 in medical bills for cannoli. And I was like, well, shouldn't have done that. That's a lot of money. So right away, my wife jumped in and started to get educated on the whole thing about puppy mills and all this. And I'm not going to sit up here and preach to you about buy or not. I'm sure many people have dogs they bought and love, and that's fine too. The main thing is that there are researchers out there, so you could just take a look. It's very accessible. But for me, there's nothing like a rescue dog. It's a different kind of love that you get from a rescue dog, and I've had it 5 times over. You'll notice that there's 4 other dogs in here, but I'll talk to you about my man right here, Mishkin. That's my boy, Mishkin. Okay, he was the first senior adopt I had. Yeah, you'll see he's all jacked up, and that's fine. He's 14 years old, guys. He had a rough life, no teeth, tongues hanging out. He don't care, okay? He has bigger problems in his life, okay? Unfortunately, Mishkin's not with us anymore, but Mishkin lived the last 7 months of his life like a rock star, okay? He's super cute, and I would love to stay up here, but I'm not going to lie to you good people. He was a little bit of a jerk. Like, he had no teeth. There's this one story where my nephew came over. I have a 4-year-old nephew, Joey, and he came over to play with the dog, and Mishkin didn't want to be played with. And Joey came toddling over at like 3. He was like, oh, no. He starts petting the dog, and Mishkin goes, arr, and just started chewing on his face, thinking he was biting him, but he has no teeth. So he's just standing there, and Joey's like, what is going on right now? As he got gummed by Mishkin. We loved Mishkin very much, and it opened up our home to an elderly dog, a senior rescue, and that started us down a different path where there's just no love like a meat Mishkin. But it changed our house. We had to play a game all the time there with the tongue hanging out. He's very regal. He's got a powdered wig on, it looks like. But that tongue out made us always play this game in our home called Is Mishkin Dead or Asleep? And we weren't always sure. I would always look to see if a chest was moving, some context clues, because it straight up looks like the beginning of like a Law and Order like episode, like where somebody's going to come in and be like, there was clearly breaking and entering, and we found the body. Dun dun, you know. So that's our Mishkin story, who we loved. But Mishkin, having an older dog, brought on a lot of different challenges, right? So there was this thing where Mishkin. I'll just let me tell it. I think I have a video here. Yeah, I'll just let me tell it. So I have an in-ground pool now, and I have 4 dogs, and one of them doesn't know how to swim. So I literally had to jump in 2 days ago and save Mishkin from drowning. So Bessie picks him up this little life vest. So that's Mishkin in his life vest so he doesn't drown. It's got a handle. So you pick him up. That's my life right now. So, I mean, and that's my life right now is really like, I never thought I would have to dive into my in-the-ground pool and save a sinking dog. At this point, we don't know if he was like done with it and trying to take his own life, or he just didn't see the pool there. But it was super cute. And I have these dogs that have become such a part of my life, and I just get out there to advocate there are so many dogs that need loving homes, and I work with a lot of foundations. And I will challenge you to walk into and meet any dog that is needing of rescue and not fall in love with one in there, because they are just so needing of a place to live and a family to love. I think I have something else. I forgot what. Yeah, so that's the whole gang. So now, this Zeppeli is here. He's my newest. So, in full transparency, the senior slot's kind of like a rotating slot. As they check out, we fill it in. So Mashkeen, he left, and then we got Zeppeli. But with all the dogs, it really is just a matter of, having a love to try to give somebody a home. And I'll say, you don't need to go and be like a crazy guy and go get a house full of dogs. You don't need a whole wolf pack. You don't even need to save one dog. I mean, you could donate your time, donate money, you could raise awareness, whatever you want to do. You could go and pet a dog. There's plenty of foundations that just actually have people go visit shelters and play with these dogs that are just, stuck in a tile floor with a cage and scared to death. The little guy in the front there is Spumoni, and story about Spumoni is actually, I travel as a comedian, and we were doing press in Las Vegas. And there's this great company called Love Pup, who has a very smart marketing campaign where they bring puppies to these events that have celebrities, and they take pictures of them on their Instagram, and they share them and say, hey, rescue this dog. This dog's up for adoption. So as I'm doing the interview, Spumoni came over and fell asleep on my lap. And I was like, oh, I'm going to just take this dog with me. And the guy's like, oh, that's not how it works. You're just supposed to put a picture up and then somebody else will adopt it. And I was like, no, this one wants to come home with me. So I had a show that night, and I was leaving the next morning at 6 a.m. for Phoenix. So I had a window of 2 hours to figure out how to get Spumoni to be mine. And I had that itch that was just spoken about can't do nothing. I was like, this dog has to be in my life. So I called the local Petco, and I was like, hey, do you guys have like a dog carrier and, food and all? And they're like, yeah. I was like, what time do you close? They're like, oh, in an hour. And I was like, oh, do you deliver? And they're like, no. I was like, do you watch the TV show Impractical Jokers? And the girl's like, yeah, I love that show. I was like, you know Joe? She's like, yeah. I'm like, yeah, I'm him. And she goes, what? I said, yeah. I told her the story, and she's like, great. And this woman did me the solid of putting together the stuff and bringing it to my hotel room so I could take Spumoni home with me that night. And now Spumoni is in my life. So somebody just did that little extra kindness for us, and I had that. And then the other thing that I started doing was, I'm on television, so I was like, oh, people always like, I was wearing a shirt one time, and so I was like, oh, that's a cool shirt, where'd you get it? And I was like, oh, wait, I'm like a billboard. So I was like, oh, I could use my body. That's not me. I don't know who that is. Who's these people? I don't know what just happened. Who's this girl? She looks lovely, but that's me. So I was like, oh, you know what I could do? I could make my body, I could use it, besides being sexy on television, I could use this masterpiece to help, bring awareness to stuff. So I actually I partnered with a company, Rock and Rawhide in New York, who raises money to donate blankets and toys to shelters, because when dogs are they're in these terrible like tile and fence things, it actually adds some comfort. So I made this t-shirt, and I wore it on the show, and then when people said, hey, where did you get that t-shirt? I was like, oh, you could actually buy it here to help support this cause. And it actually generated a lot of money for a company by me just wearing a shirt, which I'd have to do anyway on television. Well, if you watch the show, most of the time that's not true. But so I did something like that, and then when I had the idea for it, I was like, oh, I don't know how to make cool things. So I put it out on my Twitter, like, could somebody help me design a cool logo? And this was actually made by a fan for me for free to help do this. So it all comes together with just putting your cause out there, and people will help you. Then that's my dogs, and that's it, I think. So that's my story about Adopt Don't Shop. Like I said, you could find out a lot of information quite easily, and there's always information on my Twitter and Instagram at Joe_Gatto, so feel free to look there. And I think Matt's going to come out, and we're going to have a chat now. And that's it. So thank you, guys. Mia, where's Spumoni? Spumoni's here, too. Could Spumoni join us? Yeah, come on out, Spumoni. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, Mia's right here. Spumoni.
As long as I can hold him.
Yeah. Am I in the right spot? Hi, Spumoni. Hi, Poo Poo. Come on. Hi. 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 Anything to say to the people? All right. You're officially not the cutest thing on stage anymore, Matt. Yeah.
That seems to happen to me all the time. Thanks for coming back, Joe. Months of begging. It made sense. Didn't want to really rehash last year and wanted to just use that as a springboard. And you've talked a bit about what you're doing. Can you talk about that experience of, you sort of have touched on it there, about you realize that you can do these things. You are a billboard, but other people must realize that as well. Other famous people that are billboards, that are walking billboards, that have got 2 million Instagram fans or whatever. What is different in how you've been approaching this, and why do you think it's different?
I think, well, it honestly started with social media. And look, there's positives and negatives for social media. And I really think you could just use anything in your life the right way if you're using it the way you want to. And I got a lot of outreach from fans saying, you've literally saved my life, or you got us through my mother's cancer, and all these things that you totally, no matter how many times you hear it, it's like, oh, wow, I really made a difference. And that makes you feel responsible to actually be like, oh, okay, so how else can I help? And I really think that started me down the path of what are things that are important to me. And that started with the bullying, that's where you and I met. And I was like, oh, this is an important cause to me. And I used that message. And as soon as I put the message out there, people that are affected by that reach out back. And it starts a conversation. And you could really help people literally save lives. So then the same thing kind of happened with the dog thing that was up next. And I was like, there's a lot of dogs out there need love, and how can I do this besides having a whole pack of 15 dogs running around my house? Like, I can't get all of them. So I think that was another part of it. It was just to raise awareness and show that people do it. And then people share their stories as well. I'll get pictures all the time. This is my new one we saved. We named him Larry, like from the TV show or whatever. And it's just kind of fun to see that you have that effect to actually make change. So I think that's really what keeps you going. It's kind of like an addiction. It's like, what else can I do? What more? How more can I help?
So go back a little bit to that first, you said, bullying. What was that process? How did you come to that topic and say, that's what I'm going to be interested in? Who brought you to that topic?
Yep.
What was the moment where you thought, yeah, I can do something about this? Or what was the first moment when you did do something about it? When you were like, right, I'm going to be actively trying to do something.
I was at a Comic-Con in New York, and I walked by a table, and there was a woman who was selling a book about bullying. And I stopped by, and I was like, oh, that's cool. And I said, yeah, I was bullied in high school. I said, that's interesting you wrote a topic about it. And we got to chatting for 30 seconds, and then people started walking by who were like fans, and were like, oh, can I get a picture? And they started taking pictures with me. And Carrie, who was the author of the book, was like, oh, she's like, are you? I said, oh, I'm on this TV show, Impractical Jokers. And she's like, oh, I don't know it. I said, it's okay, most people don't. And she said, and I was like, hey, she's like, do you want to be on our panel? I was like, yeah. I said, when is it? She's like, today. So I was like, fine. I was like, I don't have anything prepared. I was like, I can come talk. And she said, fine. So I went and I did that first panel. And at that first panel, instantly I was like, oh, wow, this is cool. Because you're at Comic-Con where there are so many distractions and so much cooler things to see. What cast of what show is there? All this noise. And in that room, there was 75 people that was the most important thing to be looking at 2 to 3 o'clock on that day in a world surrounded of so much more interesting things. And I was like, wow, this is insane that people take the time to come to this. So this is a real thing that needs help. So that was my first foray into it. And then I started doing more of those panels. And interesting, at this last New York Comic-Con, I think you might have been on this panel with me, there was a kid when he stood up and he was in cosplay and he wouldn't take his mask off because he didn't want to show people who he was. And he said, I just wanted to let you guys know I was thinking about killing myself last night and I didn't. And I got off stage and hugged him, and then he just walked out. And then this year, which is 2 years later at that Comic-Con, he came up to the table today and he said, hey, Joe, I don't know if you know who I am, but I'm the guy you hugged 2 years ago. And he looked awesome and he was in such a good place. And he said, thank you. And I said, are you kidding me? Thank you. That was one of the coolest moments of my life. So to have that impact, to see someone who's saying, hey, I wasn't going to be here, thanks, and they give you a high five and leave your life, it's like, it blows your mind. So that is the kind of experience that just builds and builds and builds. And you have, just by cracking a joke or doing something silly on TV, you're getting people through a terrible time in their life. So
So what year was that Comic-Con that you met Carrie the first time?
Yeah, that was, we were in season 2, so that was 5 years ago. Yeah, about 5 years ago.
Yeah, so the first time I was there was 3 years ago, I think, and it was that one, I think.
Yeah.
And there were 200 people in the room, all really wanting to share their stories, and that was what I was sort of talking about afterwards. It wasn't so much a panel of people saying things to the audience, it was the audience saying, listen to my story, and just people like yourself showing sympathy.
Yeah, well, that was one of my favorite things about coming here, and that's what I really liked about it. It's not a panel where you're like, here, listen to all my wise words. It's like you get out there and you meet people and you talk to people and you hear experiences, and then when you look at who is here, it's like, oh no, it's not like, what celebrity am I going to see? Like, these are real people with real stories that decide to do a simple thing or have a grand story they just want to share. That's why I love this that you do, the Hero Roundtable, because it's just different than anything I've ever experienced. You come as a fan of people, and then you meet people and become fans of the audience. Like, it's true.
I haven't got that $20 bill in my pocket right now.
Yeah, I apologize. You guys are great. You guys are better than that.
So it's interesting. Fame's sort of an interesting thing, right? You went up to Carrie and she didn't know who you were. Yeah. You were interested in what she was doing, and you've said that before. It was last year about Comic-Cons, and you've met people that you were looking up to before you were an Impractical Joker. So have you talked to other people, like Milana's here, that there's clearly a mindset amongst some people with fame that have chosen to do good things. Are you seeing similarities in their history, their personality, their experiences that are making them do that instead of the other option?
Yeah, Milana and I were actually speaking about this at lunch. I think my perspective is it's in your programming. I think it's part of like just who you are. The type of person you are is part of it. And if you're not that type of person, it just takes a little bit more work to get there. And then you realize, oh, I should be that type of person. I just think that the main part of it is find something you're interested in. I mean, all our speakers today had something or had a life event, or, two of the speakers today were on vacation and was like, oh, I got to do something here. And it was a vacation moment where you're not thinking about doing anything. Your cause finds you. Right? So I think that's the important thing. When you find something that you're passionate about, follow that passion. Some people just don't have the time. I mean, time is the biggest thing when you're on this side of it. There's not enough hours in the day for someone's schedules that are packed. You have to work all the time. Then your family's on top of that and everything. So time is definitely a factor. So I think the bigger you are, the less your time you have.
So let's talk about that, because I think that's the case for most people. They feel very time poor, whether they have an acting career or their own TV show or go on celebrity cruises as the celebrity. But people feel that too, where I've got to get kid A to soccer tonight, hockey tomorrow, and then we've got dance on Wednesday with kids C. I haven't got any time. So what are you doing to craft that time to say, this is important. Yep. It's going to be what I'm doing with this time, instead of with one of my 76 dogs or one of my kids or whatever. How are you doing that?
I think you find every available moment and don't stop. I really think you just have to. Like, a perfect example for me for that is 62 episodes ago on Twitter, I started this thing called Traffic Cam, which I don't know if anybody here watches it. But it's basically, I was stuck in traffic and I was like, oh, I'm so bored right now. Like, what am I doing? So I put up, and I opened Periscope and I mounted my camera and I just looked at the camera and I just said, it's time for Traffic Cam, it's time for Traffic Cam. It's time for Traffic Cam, it's time for Traffic Cam. Chimichanga, and I just started talking. And people started asking questions or whatever. And at the end of it, that day I was having a particularly emotional day, and I just gave a heartfelt message at the end telling people to hang in there or whatever. And my Twitter blew up like I've never seen it before. And it just was like, people were like, thank you so much, you've got me through. And it was like, oh, this is an outlet where I would just be sitting here not doing anything, where I could capitalize on connecting with people and doing something nice. So, and I also turned on the radio and danced bad because I thought that was a fun thing to do. So I've done that multiple times, and I've done it a couple times as like a live show, like kind of fun thing. And I hear about that as much as I do of the television show. Like, it's crazy how it's just hits with people. So I think it really is just this, there's always a moment if you're willing to spend that moment doing something else.
Very nice. So
Like
what,
take a nap.
he's not napping. He's way attentive. So could you squeeze another thing in? And I think it sounded to me like the bullying was a moment, and you said before that a couple of people here found something on vacation and they found their passion, but it sounds more like something happened and then it was a click. It was like, whoa, this is wrong. I'm looking at this plastic, that's bad. I got to do something about that. And 700 other people saw the same plastic that day and didn't have that reaction. And I think your bullying reaction was probably many other people went past Carrie that day, and you could hear from her that that's what happens at Comic Cons with a book. And similarly with the dogs, it was sort of, oh, this is happening, so I'm going to do this, because you must hear causes on a regular basis, but we can't obviously respond to all of them. So do you see yourself getting struck again, and can you put the time in, or how can we prepare ourselves for that lightning strike?
I'm very charitable. It's funny because that is the way that I find causes. Like, there's two other causes that I'm passionate about, but one is because my sister started working there, and she's like, hey, you should come check out this thing. And it works with disabled people in New York City that do a music program, which I'm not musically inclined, like anything, but it was like, oh, this is a really cool story. So I think I get part of that is like kind of like the story thing. I think it's if you're open to it, and you don't have to be all in. Like some people do that, and God bless them that they could do that. Some people can't, or they're not either able to physically, financially, or, I can't pick up and just go and do something like that, like, because of my life, but I can just take little steps that make me feel good about doing what I can, and that's what it comes down to. Just do what you can. And if you do with what you can, that'll fulfill that need. And I think that's all you should expect of yourself. It doesn't have to be like this, oh, I wish I could. You can't solve any problem by yourself, but you could be part of the solution. So I think that's part of it, is really just, bringing the awareness by doing things.
So you sometimes tag me on Twitter, and I think I get a 1% sense for what your life on Twitter must be like. So you must be getting requests.
I am.
We just got a request in the lobby.
I know.
But you must be getting requests for lots of things, but especially, not especially, but for this conversation, causes, right? So people must say, Joe, can you help with this, or can you help with that? And similarly here, right? You see an ad or you see a talk today and you think, oh, I really want to follow that person and do something along that. Oh, but hang on, there's that person.
Yeah.
How do you make that happen in your head, that you say, I can't do this? And then do you communicate that? Do you just make that happen in your head and say, I can't do that, and put it aside and move on?
That's what I do. Honestly, I ignore most of it that comes in if it doesn't really come to it, because it does come in fast and furious. Like, it's weird because some people will like do research, because when you're out in the public eye with some fame, like, you can find out anything about anything. Like, so some people, I lost my father to cancer when I was 19, and I have so many cancer groups, and my sister's a breast cancer survivor, and I have so many like cancer groups that reach out, and one lady was like, why wouldn't you do that? And I was like, because I don't know. You can't answer that. Like, you need to have that little bit of passion behind it. Because you experience something or have experience with it, doesn't mean you have to advocate for it. My sister is one of the strongest people in the world. She got through breast cancer. She's a breast cancer survivor. She's great. I love her. And it's just she's more passionate about other things in her life than that cause. So I think it has to speak to you on a level where, I'm open to hearing about everything, and I always do. Every cause was brought to me in a sense. Like, I wasn't really necessarily into dogs that much about the whole adopting thing until my wife brought me to it. My wife also made me a pescatarian. We went to an event called Thanks Living at this sanctuary up in New York, the Woodstock Sanctuary, and I met a cow. And I was like, oh, it's like a huge dog. And I was like, I'm not going to eat you anymore, buddy. And I stopped doing it, and for me, who's known to be like a big fat Italian guy that loves meatballs, like, that's like, I love to eat, like, that's my thing. And my family, like, wait, what? So you don't eat meat anymore? I'm like, no, I just don't do it anymore, just because of that experience. So I really think it has to be something that speaks to you on a different level that we can't understand. It's true when we're talking about like with the heart and not the mind, it's just something that resounds in you.
Yeah, because I think that's everyone's experiences. You get bombarded, whether it is from the stage or from a phone call or you're in the mall or whatever, and you do have to protect yourself.
It's also like you, though. Like you put on this big event. Like you go and you collect people to come talk to strangers to change their life. Like that's amazing work he does. Please put your hands together for Matt. Like if I want to be you when I grow up. Like it's like you take your time and energy and you come across the world literally to come like do these events. That's insane. But why do you do it? It's like asking you why do you do it? Because you do it. That's it. You know? Right, Spumoni?
Touche. Yeah. I haven't got these $20 bills. So I think one thing that I've observed with you since meeting you those few years ago at New York Comic Con was I was on the stage.
I don't like that you're giggling already.
Yeah, I was on the stage with this panel, and I think there were some United Nations people there, and there was Carrie who'd written a book on bullying. There was me with this sort of hero training as an opposite of standing by and bullying, and there was you, and I didn't know who you were, and I think your advice was something along the lines of, bullies are assholes.
Yeah.
And that was your contribution.
That's it. That's all I did. Mic dropped and walked out, and that was it.
Yeah. So
I think it was a little more than that, but I definitely
eventually.
I definitely did say that.
Yeah.
I definitely said that sentence because people and high-fived me about it later.
So but over the course of a few years, and you've said you do some research, and so how have you evolved around that in a few years? Where, you know, what would your advice be as someone in this field now?
Yeah, I definitely was. Well, that talk I necessarily wasn't prepared for either. But I think really what helps form your opinion on something and your way to talk about things is from hearing from other people and hearing people's experiences, and those reports and those people's experiences help form your outlook. And I think the more, and honestly, just the more you talk about it, the more you realize. So I didn't even realize one story that has now become my story that I talk about at Comic-Cons about growing up, where I was like, oh, wow, this is a moment from my childhood that I never even pegged as a moment. But this is a moment that I was like, wow, this really did. So I think that all helps. The more you talk about it, the more you interact with it, the more you do it is really how it pans out. So I've definitely taken time to think about how can I make more impact with a little bit of time that I have with people. So I've definitely tried to think about like, okay, let's say I have 5 minutes with these people. What's the important part about these 5 minutes? If somebody takes away one thing, that's it, you know?
Yeah, so I think that what strikes me about you is that curiosity and around the bullying topic with Carrie and about the dogs, and you are a curious person. Yeah. And I think I've had a couple of people mention that today about how open you are and how you ask about them. And I think we, as a society, as a world, can learn from that to have conversations with people you wouldn't otherwise. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of your learning is coming from speaking to people that you might not otherwise interact with. Yeah. So, and we talked about this last year with your improv work and the show. And what advice can you give people on how to do that? Because it seems more and more difficult to talk to people who don't agree with us or who look different to us or feel different. How can we do that? How can we be more Gatto?
It's interesting because that's something I'm trying to do now with my 3-year-old daughter. She just started preschool. So it's something that we're forming as a family because it's something I definitely want to instill in her. I don't want her to be, afraid to do things. So we have a saying before she goes to school. What's bugging you? Something bugging you? Who do you see? Oh, you just noticed somebody's backstage and now you're protecting me? It's okay. We're all friends here. Relax. So I was saying with Milana before my daughter, not Milana Vine, Milana, my daughter, I say, be brave, be kind, be a Gatto before she goes to school every day. And we say that, and it has become our little house mantra. And I think it really is just, the first and foremost, you can't be afraid what other people are going to think about what you think. That's the bottom line. Because you're going to think what you think, and they're going to think what they think. And the flip side of that is you can't be upset with people about how they truly feel. And once we agree to both those opposing ideas, there's the middle, and that's where we have to live. We have to live in the middle. We have to figure out, okay, what's the conversation here? Okay? And even if somebody is on your side with something, they might not have the same exact views of why they're on their side. You're not going to agree on 100% of everything about an issue or a perspective, and that's what makes us human, and that's what's pretty. So,
Whoa.
he's okay. Mia, you want to come get her? She's upset. What are you doing back there? Stop. I think that's part of it. Part of it is really just to be open to a conversation, and it all starts there. I'm sorry, you're done.
And that takes courage, which I think we've talked about
Yes.
a lot today. A couple of people dealing with fear and
Yeah.
working with that and knowing that, hey, it might be scary talking to that person, but who knows what might come out of it.
And things like this, like everybody here, you've taken your time and spent your money and got to skip school or whatever happened, that you guys actually get to be here. I mean, who in the crowd is under 18 years old? Oh, wow. Look at that. I mean, you guys are we're literally forming the future right now, which is amazing. And you guys are spending your time in this room, and we know there's so many other distractions. And most of you might want to be doing that, not having a good time here. But there is one or two of you that are. So it really is just a part of, like, you're in this room with like-minded people. Everybody's here. You should not be afraid to say anything to anyone here. Everybody has a common interest. And that's the biggest part of it. Find somebody with a common interest and you could talk about it. I say that all the time. That happens online all the time. I have people who are friends who have never met because they're fans of Impractical Jokers and they know they are online. And I was like, hey, you have something to talk about right away. Talk about that, and then you'll find out something else about that person. So I think that really is in situations especially like this, which are like-minded people coming together for a reason. You should make a friend here. And if you don't, that's on you. It should be easy to make a friend in this room.
So have you got any other suggestions on how to deflect when someone is angry initially, and especially we see this online, and we had someone post on our Facebook page, Squirrel Girl is the worst comic book character ever. And I said, that seems hard to prove, but he tried. But how do you...
And what does that have to do with anything we're doing here today?
It's because it's that, yeah. It's how can you deflate that? Because that's, the easy response is to go back at that person, but the moderators of the page were kind of like, no, we're not going to engage.
Yeah.
But how do you, I don't know how much you get that as an Impractical Joker, because it seems you're widely loved. And you're not playing Squirrel Girl. But there's a lot of that out there. And do you try to engage with that, whether it's in person or online?
I'll take you through the steps, what happens when I see something. I see something I don't necessarily like that somebody's taking the time to write to me. It doesn't happen that often, but it does. And when it happens, the first thing I'll do is click on that person's profile. And I'll look. And I will bet anyone in this room that 9 out of 10 of the tweets in a row were angry, pointed at something about either your customer service sucks, hurts, or or something about this is the worst management of this baseball team ever. I can't believe how bad the Braves are this season. And it's just all these angry things, and that's how those people decide to spend their time online. Those are the ones I don't care about. Those are the ones I clap back at. I don't care about those people because that's what they're using social media for. The ones I care about are if they're younger, and they don't necessarily realize what they're doing, or if it's someone that has like pictures up with their family or whatever, and I see like there's not that way that they're acting online, I'll literally just say, hey, and I've done this 3 or 4 times, and every time it's happened, I've gotten what is I guess in essence an apology or oh wow, thank you for that, which is I'll say, hey, instead of taking the 30 seconds that it took to talk bad about me online, maybe call a friend, hug a family member, pet a dog, be well. And that's all I'll say. And that works. And I find that to work all the time because I think people just need to realize, oh, you do have impact even because you just can't see me. And I think it blows their mind that I see it. You know what I mean? Because of the following I have and everything's like, oh my God, he actually saw. Or if I feel like people are just doing it to get a rise out of me, I won't say anything. But if I feel like it's something that needs to be addressed, I'll do it. And I found that's the best way to do it. Just make people realize. Because as you know, cyberbullying is a big thing with me too. It's like realize that your words people see just because you're hidden. So
Yeah, thank you. So I think we are going to close up the day.
Okay.
So I want to let you kind of have a last word, which I know is unusual for you. And in fact, I'm not going to, because I'm going to close it after you go off the stage. But have you got any thoughts that have run through the day today, in between last year, just to leave everyone with?
Yeah. I would say to everybody in this room, first and foremost, thanks so much for coming to be part of this event. We wouldn't, if these seats were empty, we'd have nobody to try to inspire. So thank you so much for you guys. Thanks to Matt for putting together such an amazing, I'm blown away by this every time I come, and I feel super inspired every time. So thank you for that. And really, the work is now on you, and don't approach it as work. Approach it as something that you'll love. And I promise you, you will find something that you're excited about, no matter what the topic is. And good luck to you. That's it.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, sir.
You got it.
The Hero Roundtables are the global events that ask the question, what is a hero? You've just seen one hero talk. To find more and join the conversation, visit our website or social media.